Hey, it's Nala with Word in the Hood. I have something to talk about. A reality check. That lifestyle that y'all living, it's not what you think it is. Now, I have been around quite a long time and I've seen a lot of things in my days. So today we're going to talk about the lifestyle. And you're going to have to excuse me because I don't usually script anything, but I got a lot of notes here. So you'll have to excuse me for looking down. They told us it was about brotherhood, loyalty, ride or die, but they never told us the truth. They never told us that when the pressure hits, the same people screaming, no snitching, are the first to cut a deal. Today I'm here to tell you the lifestyle you think is real, the one they glamorized in music and movies, it's a lie. And I got stories to prove it. Guys, like I said, I've been around a long time and I've seen a lot of bad stuff, man. Met a lot of people, some good people, but mostly bad. The illusion of brotherhood, man. Growing up in the hood, you don't question your brothers. You assume loyalty. I mean, that's the name of the game. So you just assume that loyalty is part of the game. You need that loyalty to survive. You ignore the signs, strange behavior, the missing details, the shaky stories, because the alternative means admitting the truth. You might be riding for people who wouldn't do the same for you. So I have an example. I've shared this story a bunch of times, so you're going to have to forgive my language, but pussy ass Sergio. He earned that name, right? So anybody who knows me knows that the first time I went to prison for something I didn't do, man. I went to prison for keeping my mouth shut. Why did I keep my mouth shut? Because at the time, I was in the hood. I was playing by the rules that I thought we were all playing by. And Sergio wasn't playing by those rules. We ended up getting pulled over, and Sergio had a pistol on him. And when we got pulled over, that pistol ended up on the floorboard in the driver's seat where I was driving. I was actually driving his car, but that pistol wasn't on the floorboard. That pistol was in his hand. That pistol was on him, but when we got pulled over, that pistol ended up on the floorboard. Not only that, I had a little bit of drugs on me. I knew he had drugs on him. Now, how did I know he had drugs on him? I knew he had drugs on him because I sold him the drugs earlier that week. And we had did a little deal that day. That day, he came over and I had a bunch of people calling me. I mean, I was a drug dealer. I'm admitting that. I don't hide that. And he came over and I had somebody that wanted something. So I asked him for the drugs that I had sold him earlier that week. And he said no. And he ended up telling me, look, I'll sell you just a small amount just so you can take care of that person or whatever. So I bought a small amount. I bought a small bag and I bought a small bag of weed. So we went somewhere, and on the way back from where we went, we ended up getting pulled over. When we got pulled over, I knew he had drugs on him, and I knew he had the pistol on him. I told him, hey, hide the drugs, hide the pistol, we're going to get pulled over. And when we got pulled over, he didn't hide the drugs or the pistol. So when they pulled me out of the car, he ended up throwing, I had to have thrown that pistol at my feet. So then they pull me out of the car, and they go in the car, they find the pistol, they tell me I'm going to jail. Okay, I'm going to jail. They search me. They don't find the drugs. I had the drugs crotched in my pants. They don't find the drugs. They don't find the drugs, so they tell me I'm going to jail for the pistol. I'm like, okay, I'm going to jail for the pistol. The paddy wagon comes to take me to jail. They searched me again before they put me in the paddy wagon. They don't find the drugs. I'm in the paddy wagon for a couple minutes. Before I go in the paddy wagon, I see them search him. He didn't stash the drugs either. They pulled the drugs. He had them in his waistband. He was wearing a pair of sweatpants. So they pulled the drugs out, and I'm like, man, this dude didn't even hide the freaking drugs. So now I know he's going to jail with me. So I'm in the paddy wagon. They open the paddy wagon door, and they pulled me out and they put him in the paddy wagon. When they pulled me out, they searched me again, but this time they put their hands straight down my pants and pulled out those drugs. How did they know I had drugs on me? They just searched me twice and didn't find them. Now they just go straight in my pants and pull out the drugs. So I am talking about what we view as loyalty versus what reality is. And some of those examples is, you know, we grew up in the hood, so we don't question our brothers. I rationalized away previous behavior because that was my guy. He was like my best friend. We grew up together, and I mean, he's seen a lot of stuff. We did a lot of stuff together, man. He was literally my best friend. I used to hang out with him every day. And so that friendship was never tested. So all the things that I had known before, I rationalized away. But there was signs that this guy couldn't hold his mud. I remember growing up, and it was years before, but we did a burglary together. Me and this guy did a burglary together, and we go do this burglary, and I later find out that was his sister's house. He literally took me with him to break into his sister's house. I mean, that dude's a piece of shit. Broke into his own sister's house because he knew she was on vacation. That was a sign they should have told me he was a piece of shit. But I didn't think of it like that. It's like, you know, that's his business. You know, he's that type of guy, blah, blah, blah. And swept it under the rug. I know he was accused of attempting to rape a woman. I knew her very, very well. And, you know, when he came and told me the story, I believed him. I swept that story under the rug, you know. But why? Why do I sweep the story under the rug for so long? I mean, even when it happened, I did not realize that the only way that gun could have got there was him throwing it there. I mean, I went to jail. I sat in the county jail for months and never questioned his loyalty, even though he didn't step up right then and there and say, hey, look, that was my gun. It wasn't his. I ended up ultimately bonded out. He helped me bond out. So these things of us growing up helped me in justifying those past behaviors, or even not recognizing the behaviors that were right in front of my face. And so ultimately, I end up going to trial. He says he's going to take the weight for this pistol. And I go to trial, and he doesn't get up on the stand and take the weight. He says, I'm not testifying. Only then did it all come crashing down and me realize this dude's not who he said he was. Only then did I stop rationalizing away his actions. Only then did it come to light that, man, this dude had to have thrown that pistol there. He's the only one that knew I had drugs on me. He had to have told them that I had drugs on me when for them to pull me back out and search me again. And sure enough, man, I later realized that there was behaviors. There was behaviors that I mean, even when we were in the county jail that night, man, this dude was stressed. He was stressed like, you know, he'd never been to jail before. And me, I had been in and out of jail my whole juvenile life, so it wasn't a big deal to me. But I'm watching this guy stressed like crazy. So even this guy that was supposed to be my best friend, I rationalized away behavior. Why? Because we grew up in the hood. We did a lot of things together. I mean, this guy used to, I remember I was a juvenile. I had a warrant for my arrest. And going from house to house, this guy used to come pick me up. I'd hide in the back seat. And, you know, he'd take me where I needed to go, you know. So these people that we think we can trust, we can't always trust these people we think we can trust. And they're all over the place, man. I'm going to give you another example. The other example is the leader who led you off the cliff. Sometimes the snake ain't hiding in the grass, he's leading the pack. We put people on pedestals in the game, not realizing that they're using our loyalty as a shield while they play both sides. So this is a funny story because this dude, his nickname was Little Man. I remember this dude when I was a kid. This dude was a thief. He was he was just a little neighborhood thief. I remember when we were kids, and the very few times that I met him or had interactions with him while we were growing up, because he would spend most of his life locked up. I mean, he was a burglar. He wasn't very good because he was always locked up for it. But so anyway, this guy's in the hood, and he's on the street corner bopping with some headphones on. He's not listening to music, man. He's listening to a police scanner. And I knew him. I didn't really interact with him. He was older than me. But I remember at the age of about 14, 15 years old, we had an interaction where he showed his true colors, man. We were going through something, and I don't really want to glorify nothing or really get into too much detail, but I got violated. And this guy was supposed to go witness this violation and keep time. And during this altercation, during this incident, we were having a discussion where he was telling me what to do, and I was like, man, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I didn't look up to this guy. And after this incident where me pushing back on what he was telling me I had to do 3 times in a row, even at, he threatened me, said, hey, if you do it again, I'm going to jump in. And I basically looked at him and said, okay, well, you're just going to be, another one getting hit. And so after that, we're walking out of, we were in the cemetery in the neighborhood. We're walking out of the cemetery, and he looks at me and he says, man, you're a down little shorty. He's like, I want to get you high. And I'm like, I don't get high. And I remember saying, getting high is for the birds. And so he's like, all right, well, I know you drink, man. Let me buy you an 8-pack. And I was like, oh, I'll take an 8-pack, because I did drink. I was a little alcoholic at a young age. And so he treats me to some beer because he likes my character. But to me, I looked at him and I kind of lost respect for him that day, because I felt like this older guy was looking up to me, and it just left a bad feeling in me, that this older guy that's supposed to be, this leader or whatever, was looking up to me. The roles were not correct in my eyes. So anyway, later on, he ended up becoming the leader of the gang. I was locked up at the time. Well, but before I got locked up, he became the leader. And I remember him coming over one time, and we were heavily involved. And he came over one time, and he was terrified to be around us. I seen him all jittery. He had just gotten shot a bunch of times because they tried to kill him. But I noticed that this dude's not the same guy. He was jittery. He was, looking around all crazy while we're all acting normal. Signs that we weren't seeing. I kind of recognized him, but I didn't think twice about it. And I just said, he's soft, and washed it under the rug. Later on, I'm already locked up. He ends up getting arrested. I don't really like this guy. I don't really mess with this guy. But while I'm locked up, he ends up needing bond money. He's trying to raise $10,000 in bonds. So they come to me and ask me if I can let him borrow some money. And I did. I didn't really like the guy, but they asked, so I did. Why did I do that? Out of loyalty to this gang that's alive. Even though I didn't like the guy, even though I didn't trust the guy, I still viewed him as a brother, because I'm looking at the whole as opposed to looking at the individual. And so anyway, he bonds out, but all that was a game. He was working for the feds. So he bonds out, and he's working for the feds, and they put him up in a house where they're recording everything. His home becomes a party spot. I was gone, but these are the stories that I heard, that his house was the party spot, and everybody was hanging out there. But he had his living area, and he had the hangout area, and supposedly the hangout area was bugged and with mics and cameras, and they were seeing all the gang activity. So I noticed the way he acted, but I swept it under the rug. I didn't respect that guy, and for there's a reason. And I even still try to help him because I was believing the lying myth that we're all part of this gang together. We're supposed to be close or whatever. This guy ended up being a rat. He ended up getting a lot of people locked up. Even the leader was not able to be trusted. So this lifestyle that we're living, or that we were living, and that these kids are living now, I'm trying to let you know it's not what you think it is. There's going to be a lot of people around you that you think are your friends. They're not. There's another example. This one is even it's even deeper, man. The deepest betrayal is when the one you trust to protect you is the one plotting your downfall. And in the twisted logic of the streets, we often point the gun at the wrong person while the real person smiles behind us. Orlock. This dude was a serial killer. Young kid. He was in another gang. He ratted on the other gang. And then came to this other gang and was accepted. Why did they accept him? They accepted him because he was a serial killer. And they rationalized away his previous actions because in the gang he was valued as somebody that does dirt. It's crazy, but that was a value. The gang saved his life, basically. And he ended up getting locked up one time and started working for the feds. And I remember when he got locked up, I was locked up already. And I remember hearing about it. And I remember speaking to somebody that said, man, they better go bond that guy out. If they don't go bond that guy out, man, he's going to turn on them. And I hung out with that guy. I rationalized away his previous behavior. Why? Because again, you think that because he's a serial killer and has this crazy value to the gang that he's not like that. Oh, it was when he was a kid. He's not like that anymore. That wasn't true. He went in, got locked up, and the government kind of washed away his sins, gave him immunity, and turned him to try to bring down the whole gang. So the funny thing is, the people in the gang sensed that there was a rat, but they couldn't figure out who the rat was. So what they ended up doing was pointing the finger at a likely candidate, somebody they felt was weak, somebody that they felt wasn't up to par. And so the gang gets together and says, hey, this guy's a killer. Go kill this guy. They're telling the rat to go kill an innocent guy. And the rat keeps making excuses. He's making excuses because every time they're telling him, it's being recorded. He's working for the feds. He can't go kill nobody, while he's working for the feds. And everybody rationalized away his shady actions. Why? Because he was a key figure in the gang. So they're not suspecting that it's him when it is him. And the whole time, the whole gang is plotting against one guy that gave many, many years of life and loyalty to the gang. And the whole time, everybody in the gang is plotting on killing him. That's the life that you're living, man. You can't even trust the guy next to you. And you think that this gang lifestyle is real? You think that this loyalty that's projected is real? It's not real, man. Ask these people how they're going to act when they're told that they're facing life in prison. Just think about it. It happens all the time. You rationalize away the odd behavior because we have already excused past examples based on new actions. He was a serial killer. How could he be the rat? And that's exactly what I think people were thinking. He's a serial killer. How could he be the rat? It doesn't make sense, but neither does that lifestyle. You're going into a lifestyle based on a bunch of propaganda. You're going into a lifestyle based on people that are trying to find something. You know, I'm going to go into a couple of things, right? 3 stories, 1 truth. The code ain't real. The loyalty is fake and the consequences are deadly. You think you're playing a game of loyalty, but you're just a pawn in someone else's play. If you're out there right now thinking the streets got your back, let this episode be your wake-up call, because the lifestyle, it ain't what you think it is. All right? I don't usually script anything, man, but I just wanted to make sure I took good notes, because there's, you know, still some things that we need to talk about. Why? Why is it so easy for people to rationalize away odd behavior? The guy is nervous. You know, he's not as talkative as he normally is because he's wearing a wire. You know, psychological examples of our behavior. Cognitive dissonance. This is when your mind holds 2 conflicting beliefs and tries to reduce the discomfort by justifying or ignoring one. An example: you see signs your homie is acting shady, but your belief in loyalty makes you rationalize his behavior. You think, he wouldn't do that. He's my friend, or your best friend, or the leader in the gang, or the serial killer. We think, nah, not him. That's cognitive dissonance. When Sergio sent me to prison, I'm sitting on the stand and I have a decision to make. I can either testify that it ain't mine and I don't know whose it is, or I could testify that it ain't mine, it's his. Even though I saw that day that he wasn't playing by the same rules, because he wouldn't even take responsibility to avoid me going to prison. Supposed to be one of my best friends. He's not going to take the responsibility for his own actions to avoid me going to prison. I chose to keep my mouth shut and basically say, I don't know whose gun that was. And I ended up going to prison for it. I owed that dude no loyalty. I owed him no loyalty. The minute that he showed his true colors, I didn't owe him any loyalty. But I was still living by that code that I grew up with. Kept my mouth shut and went to prison. What about little man? People knew before it was official. They suspected, but yet they still hung out. They still, you know, did all kinds of things. I remember hearing a story where this guy told me, he was like, yeah, we were in the basement, or they were in whatever room they were hanging out in his house, and there was a smoke alarm on the wall. And he said he looked at that smoke alarm and it was odd. That smoke alarm was in an odd place. It wasn't on the ceiling. It was on the side of the wall and in the middle of the wall. And he said, man, that's a camera. And so what he did was he walked up to the wall, you know, got on the side of the camera and knocked it off the wall from the side. But it's like, you were still hanging out there. It just blew my mind, right? Confirmation bias. This is when you notice information that supports what you want to believe and ignore the rest. An example, you notice when your friend does something loyal but ignore all the shady stuff that he does that contradicts that belief. Same thing with Sergio. We did a lot of stuff together. We hung out a lot. He knew stuff, but that loyalty was never tested. So the shady stuff that he was doing, I ignored. Robbing your own sister, you know, trying to be a rapist, you know what I'm saying? I remember, you know, he came from a rich family. I mean, he did really nothing to support himself. He was always getting money from his family, drove nice cars, just little things that, you know, this guy's not who he says he is, but ignored all of that. Little man, he's supposed to be a leader in a gang. He's dealing drugs, calling hits, and he's the rat. How about the rat? How about the serial killer? This dude's literally, I remember he went to jail for like an 8 attempted murder, shot 5 people at one time. On another time, he shot 3 people. So this is the guy that's like, nah, not him. He's so actively involved. Can't be him. You look at the old story of Sammy the Bull, John Gotti's hitman. This is a prime example when I say it's all good. The friendship has never been tested. Sometimes you won't know until there's actual pressure. That's the point I'm trying to get across, man. You're living in a lifestyle where everybody's at risk of going to prison. Everybody's at risk of suffering great consequences. And you might not never know until that friendship is tested. But the thing you got to think about is, why put yourself in that situation, man? Why put yourself in that situation? Let them tell you you're looking at life in prison and see how you act. I mean, that's something you need to ask yourself. You really need to ask yourself, do you want to spend life in prison? Especially in a gang. These RICO laws ain't no joke. You get caught in a RICO conspiracy and the actions of one are the actions of all. So even though you're just a drug dealer, or maybe not even a drug dealer, you might be playing a minor role in the gang. The gang gets investigated. This guy's committing murders. This guy's selling drugs. You're in the gang. What they're doing, you're doing. You're responsible for that. Ask yourself, do you want to spend life in prison? Ask yourself, is that lifestyle worth it? Groupthink. This is when the group prioritizes harmony and loyalty over truth and critical thinking. Pretty much, that's the whole basis of the lifestyle. You're in a group that says these are the rules and everybody's abiding by the rules, and there's no checks and balances. There's nobody really making sure everybody's abiding by all them rules. Y'all are just living life happy-go-lucky, doing stupid shit, until it hits the fan. It was to the point where the group mentality is they knew there was a rat, and they get together and try to figure out who's the rat, and they point to somebody that gave his life loyally for ages, because he's not a killer, because he's not like them. Maybe he wasn't tough enough. Whatever the reason was, they started pointing the finger at an innocent person, and this guy was standing there pointing that finger too, because he was the rat and didn't want them looking at him. That's the thing about group thinking, man. I just did a podcast the other day on another one of my channels about group thinking and how the masses can be moved easily. We want to belong. That's one of the biggest reasons people join gangs in the first place. They want to belong. Trauma bonding, often found in toxic relationships, including gangs. The shared pain creates a deep bond, making it hard to accept betrayal, even when it's obvious. Think about it like this. You've survived shootouts, lockups, maybe even poverty together. So you can't accept that same person would fold or tell. A lot of times that's how groups form. Same poor neighborhoods. You're growing up in the same poor neighborhoods. You're growing up around the same poor people. You're being fed the same nonsense. Oh, nobody gets out of the hood, and this is all we'll ever have is the hood. I remember the propaganda, man, thinking I was poor when I was a kid, and I wasn't poor. I thought I was poor, but I really wasn't. It was just something that it was cool to say, cool to act like, until you grow up and realize, man, I never missed a meal and I always had a roof over my head. We weren't poor. We thought we were poor. We were poor spiritually, I guess. So that's probably one of the biggest. We did dirt together. We've been on the streets together for years. And you're always thinking, remember that one time we did this or that? Remember that one time that we got away with this or that? That's the key. Y'all got away. So that friendship wasn't tested. That loyalty wasn't tested. Let y'all get caught. And you're going to be surprised at how quick people start flipping, and realizing, man, I don't want to go to jail for the rest of my life. It sounded cool while we were, playing, but now this done got serious. Somebody's going to jail. Sunk cost fallacy. This is when you've invested so much time, loyalty, and pain into a relationship or group that you refuse to walk away even when it's bad for you. Man, this is an example that's universal. Toxic relationships, boyfriend and girlfriend. You invest so much time where it's like it's not even worth walking away anymore. What else do I have? That's the mentality. Where else am I going to go? Some kids even have nothing else, and they think they're going to be the ones to fix it, because that's all they got. Think about having a bunch of poor kids coming in and forming a gang, and they're realizing things are falling apart around them, but they don't have nothing else. They don't have nowhere else to go. Broken families, broken homes, no education, no job. All those things are weighing heavy, and it's like, okay, what else do I have? I got to make this work. Okay, we're going to kick out this guy, but I'm going to make this work. I'm going to be the leader now, and things are going to change, and again, you're just diving deeper because you have nothing else. That's a crazy mentality, but it's real. You've invested so much of your life that you refuse to look anywhere else. Everyone you know is involved. All your friends are involved. That's a difficult decision to make, man. What else do you know? Most people don't, because they spend so much of their life investing in that they don't get to experience nothing else. Where will you go? Back to the broken home? That's why you left and joined the gang. You didn't want to be in that broken home all day. You didn't want to see what's going on at home or whatever. And some people don't even go through that. Some people just go join a gang because they just want to belong. How do you walk away? Call it what it is. Break the code of silence. Call it what it is. That's what I'm here for. That's what Word in the Hood is all about. To call it how it is. Break that code. No, you're not going to keep feeding me that lie. I know better. That's why I walked away. Say it out loud. This ain't loyalty. This is manipulation. Why it works. Speaking truth kills delusion. It forces your brain to evaluate what you've been calling loyalty. And that's what I had to do, man. I had to look back and say, man, everything that I've gone through, what was right and what was wrong. Nobody did that prison time with me. Matter of fact, well, let me take that back. They didn't do the prison time with me. You know who ended up doing the prison time with me? My wife, my kids, my parents, my family. They ended up doing that time with me. Nobody else was affected by it. The people that actually loved me were affected by it. So you have to call it how it is. That's why I'm here. That's what, I'm bringing truth. People ask me all the time, does the gang hate you for the things you talk about? No, what are they going to say? I'm telling the truth. I was up in Illinois and spending time with my family, and there was a couple gangbangers around. And I look back and I think about it. I was dogging the gang that night in front of them kids. I was dogging the gang. Why? Because I wanted them to understand. I can't make you make the decision, but dang it, I'm going to be here to do as much as I can to open your eyes. We were talking about rats, and they're like, oh, that would have never happened. I would have known. I would have known. Nah, you think you would have known. Everybody in the gang has been around a rat, and y'all didn't know until it was too late. All of y'all have been around a rat, and y'all didn't know until it was too late. So, reality check with a stranger's eyes. What do? Ask yourself, if this was somebody else's situation, what would I say to them? I mean, that's reality, man. You got to look at people and be like, what's really going on here? This is going to remove the emotional bias and let you see things more clear. Like an outsider. Take all them rules that the gang has. Take all the rules, put them on paper and say, okay, who's not following all these rules? You're not following all the rules, I guarantee you, because there's so much nonsense in those freaking rules that nobody follows the rules. So why are you involved in something that's not real? Watch the actions, not the vows. List what they actually did versus what they say. How do people act versus how they talk? One of the things that we used to say all the time, man, is the one that barks the loudest is going to probably be the first one to tell. And I have experience, man, that I've seen that a lot. people that talk a lot, they're usually the ones that they're talking so much because they're hiding something. They're trying to disguise what's really going on. And I used to see that, man. I used to see people, we used to call it wolfing. People just yapping, and it ain't really going to do nothing. And that's reality, man. You got to think about it. Take a 72-hour loyalty fast. What do? Tell yourself for 3 days, I owe no one anything but truth and clarity. This is a short mental detox that lets you reset your thinking without the guilt or pressure from the gang. I mean, just sit back and ask yourself what you're worth. Ask yourself, how do you value your own life? How do you value your freedom? How do you value your family? The things that are really important in life. Because the gang can't be at the top of the list, and too many people put it at the top of the list. Look around yourself, and not the people that make you feel good, but the people that care about you, the people that are going to tell you right from wrong. You know what I mean? A lot of times these kids in the gangs don't really have people telling them right from wrong. I didn't have people telling me right from wrong. Not in the way that mattered. I had people that were telling me right from wrong, but there was really no actions. I mean, my mom, my mom was a little woman. What was she going to do? She wasn't going to grab me by the ear and make me do anything. You know what I mean? My dad passed away when I was young, and my dad was a different character. My dad used to tell me right from wrong, but what he would do was he would tell me, hey, you're doing this, and this is what's going to happen. My dad wouldn't grab me by my shirt and say, hey, get the heck off the streets or you're going to end up in prison. He used to look me straight in the eye and say, look, you keep doing that, you're going to end up in prison. And he was right. He didn't want me to do it, but unfortunately, he treated me like a young man and let me make my own decisions. And basically told me, I'm going to tell you how it is, but you can learn the hard way if you want to. And I think that was, as much as I understand what he was trying to do, I wish my dad would have grabbed me by my freaking shirt collar, whooped my ass, and took me off the streets. It would have saved me a lot of heartache. Ask, would they do the time for me? That is a freaking huge question. Sergio said no. Sergio, I ended up doing the time for Sergio. You know what I mean? And why? Because I was young and stupid, man. I was living by the code. You know what I mean? People ask me all the time, would I rat? Listen, man, I'm not going to never put myself in a situation like that again. You know what I mean? I'm not never going to put myself in a situation that I have to ask myself that. You know what I mean? I'm grown. But I say this, don't put me in a situation, because one way or the other, you're going to take your own weight now. This is how it is. One way or another, you're going to take your own weight these days. I'm not doing time for nobody. But you're going to somehow confess on yourself, because you're not going to let me go down. But I'm not putting myself in that situation. If you put me in a bad situation, you're going to have to step up and man up and take responsibility. But I hope I'm a better decision maker, that I'm not even around people like that that are going to jeopardize my freedom. Ask yourself, would they do it for you? If the answer is no, then you already know what time it is. You need to find yourself some new friends. Find a new circle based on growth, not guilt. What do? Surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking and not trap it. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. Loyalty should feel like elevation, not incarceration. So what that's saying is, who around you is trying to help you be a better person? If the person around you is trying to teach you how to sell drugs without getting caught, he's not trying to elevate you. If the person around you is patting you on the back, being a yes man, telling you that, yeah, you're good, that's not somebody that's helping you grow. You need to be around people that are actually caring about you and don't want to see you making bad decisions. When your parents, girlfriends, or whatever tell you, hey man, come home at night, get off the streets, it's probably because they care, man. If somebody's going out there partying with you and making stupid decisions with you, those aren't the people that genuinely care about you. They're willing to jump off the bridge and take you with them. I tell kids all the time, man, interview your friends. It's a big belief I have. Interview your friends. Interview your girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. interview them, and it don't have to be 20 questions. Hey, that's the while you're having conversations, literally while you're having conversations. Hey, what do you think about after you graduate? What are you gonna do? If they answer you and say, oh, I don't know, they don't got goals, man. Maybe you need somebody different around you. If your friend says, man, I want to go to college, I want to do this, that, and the other, then maybe that's somebody that, like, okay, we can hang out. I assure you right now, the loyalty you have to the people in your circle is not going to be the same loyalties that you have in the future. These people that you go to high school with and junior high school with, that you're out there messing around with, those are not going to be your friends in 10 years, man. If you go to college, you're going to meet your doctor friend, your lawyer friend. You're going to meet people that have similar interests in life, similar goals, trying to get somewhere in life. Those are the people that you want to learn from, people that have goals, people that have something going for themselves, even plans, even at a young age, man. Do your friends have side hustles? You know what I mean? That ain't illegal? I remember growing up, we had friends, man, that they were selling bike parts, swapping bike parts and things like that, man. People that learn mechanics, hey, I need somebody to fix my bike. I need somebody that can work on my car, hobbies. If the only thing you got going is some gang banging, man, you hanging out with the wrong people, man. So this is just something I want you to think about. The life you're living is not what you think it is. The people you are around are not who you think they are. Don't wait to find out. Don't wait till it's too late to find out. Because the reality is, if you're out there doing dirt, and people know about it, nothing in secret stays secret. A little short message. I've had this conversation several times in the last few months. I trust you with all my heart. So I tell you something. I share some deep secret with you. And then you're sitting there like, oh, I know this information. And then you look at your friend and like, I trust him with all my heart. So you share my story with him because you think you can trust him to keep quiet. And then he has somebody that he trusts with all his heart. And he tells them my business. Before you know it, my business is everywhere. Because everybody thinks that they have somebody they can trust with all their heart. But guess what? That person that you trust with all your heart has somebody that they trust with all their heart. And so on, and so on, and so on. And before you know it, you done told somebody you did dirt. And before you know it, the rat finds out you did dirt. And then the rat comes and asks you directly for a confession while he's mic'd up. The life is not what you think it is, guys. Get out of it while you can. Get out of it while you can. Walk away while you can. Stop rationalizing away bad behavior, because them rats are out there. And a rat can be any form. Somebody that's just getting you into, somebody that's telling, or somebody that's just getting you into problems, man. Somebody that's just getting you into trouble. Somebody that's trying to guide you down the wrong path. Those are people that you don't need to be around. So this is Nalo with Word in the Hood, man. I hope this made sense. I hope that you will evaluate your life and the people around you, man, and learn to make better decisions, because the life you're living is not what you think it is.